Hello, everyone, and we are back with Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. It's the tennis betting podcast brought to you in association with Bet Rivers, your hometown sportsbook. We had a bit of a break. The Davis Cup was last week. You might have seen I was on my travels in Greece. Sean Calvert, our senior ATP Tour handicapper, has joined me from his trip in New York. We haven't spoken since he was returned from the finale of the US Open. It never went to plan. We thought Daniel Medvedev maybe to put up a bit of a performance, but Novak Djokovic won his 24th Grand Slam singles title. It's a reunion for us. It's a reunion this week, and as the tennis ATP Tour returns to China for the first time since COVID, and we're coming at you at a very different time. We'll come on to you a little bit about that in a minute, but first of all, welcome along, Sean. How are you, my friend?
Thank you. I'm all right. I had quite a relaxing week last week, actually. It's not often we get a week off from the tennis, is it? It's normally every single week. I think it's twice we had a little bit of a break this year. So it was nice weather. I mean, not as nice as what you had, obviously, on your holidays, but it was really nice in England. So I was just kind of relaxing and just enjoying the sun and just kind of forgetting about tennis for a week, which is quite important as well, because it can just be relentless, the tennis tour, 11 months of the year. So it's nice to have a little week off.
Yeah, so I was complaining about my burnt lips. Look at these lips. I mean, I've got big lips anyway. I've got quite.
They don't look particularly big. It look kind of normal.
Mick Jagger, I've been called before.
Really?
I've got quite biggish lips. But I was swimming like that, and the sun has burnt my lips. So I've absolutely had to put loads of sun cream on because every time I talk, it starts cracking. So I'm going to let you do a lot of talking this afternoon. That's
okay, that's one of the perils of spending all your life in the sunshine. I see that's the problem.
Well, it was a week off. We had a week off. I'm very lucky to do this for a job, as you are as well. I'll be going. The next tournament you're going to will be Antwerp, and
there's no sunshine there.
I'm going to Vienna. Means nothing to me, but that's why I'm going to Vienna. But that'll be it for the year. There won't be no sunshine then. So it's the last opportunity for sun.
Yeah, no, take it. I'd spend my whole life in the sun if I could. But yeah, it's weird. We're lucky, to have this opportunity to go to all these tournaments. Don't always get the greatest weather, but when it is nice, it's the best job in the world, isn't it?
Exactly. And talking of the tennis tour this month, we've got move on to the Asian swing now. You might be thinking, where were we on Sunday? Well, there's a bit of a difference in start times now over in Asia. They start on a Wednesday, the tournament starts, and run through till the Tuesday. So you're going to see us coming at different times of the week now. We're going to preview the tournaments on the Tuesday for the next month, as we are doing here. Then we'll be back on Thursday and Friday, giving you the best plays for that tournament in that week while the tour moves along to Asia. And it's the first time, Sean, it's been back since COVID. So it's a bit of a difficult one this week because we don't really know much about the surfaces. We knew obviously what it was predominantly beforehand, but we don't really know much about it. We haven't really got much form. And the players obviously have coming towards the end of their career, end of the season. Some of them
are coming to the end of their career.
Yeah, but the motivation might be questionable. So it's going to be quite interesting. And it's ATP Tour 250 events this week. So the monetary value isn't that great either. So how do you sort of approach these tournaments after the major, after a break? Are you coming in with a little bit of fear? Or are you thinking, no, tennis is back. I know the players are going to be trying. I know the players who aren't going to be trying. I'm in confident mood. How do you approach this sort of swing?
I think this is an opportunity, really. It's one where the layers aren't, they're pricing the matches up based on form and statistics and everything else. But as you say, motivation is a big factor here. Chengdu's not been on the tour since 2019, but 48% of the underdogs have won there in the 4 years that it's been on tour. That's the most of any tournament that's currently still on the ATP Tour. So almost half the underdogs have won in the 4 years that it's been on the tour. So, and that for me presents a great opportunity for my style of betting, trying to find the value, trying to find the underdogs, trying to figure out where the motivation might lie. We'll come on to that in a minute with some of the matches, but and Chengdu is kind of, I don't know whether it still is, it looks to be. It was always pretty quick, and I do prefer the tournaments where it's quick. I think it gives you a better idea, a better chance, I think, in terms of the prices and sort of tie breaks and all that sort of stuff. So I think this for me is a better opportunity by far than the Grand Slams, for example, where very few of the underdogs win. We saw it again in the US Open. First 2 rounds, decent return for the underdogs, but then nothing in the US Open. Like 3 or 4, I think, underdogs won after that. So in slow conditions. But for me, this is my kind of bet, and I really love these sort of weeks.
Yeah, Chengdu obviously is an ATP Tour 250 event. It's back in China. Look at the list of the previous winners: Karina Busta, we've had Estemin, Tomic, Kachanov. They're the 4 previous winners. This is the 5th time, and as Sean said, it hasn't been competed since 2019. Do you also think there's a kind of still people, traveling to China to play in a sporting event? Do you think that a lot of people will are quite nervous of that proposition? I mean, I know COVID is long gone, but I certainly wouldn't want to go to China. If someone said to me now, "Would you like to go to China?" I'd say,
Neither would
really.
I.
No, I wouldn't really fancy it. So do you think there's a lot of players here who are thinking, "Well, I'm going there. My sponsors want to go there, and there's a potential that I want to get out of it as quick as I possibly can."
There are certainly players, and again, we'll come on to that in a minute, that view this whole section of the tour as a kind of just something to go through the motions. I must admit, I hadn't considered the prospect of people being fearful of going to China for whatever reason, but it could be the case because it's obviously very, very different there, isn't it? Very few people would speak English, which a lot of the tour obviously speaks English. There's that element that would sort of put me off from going there. Would be the fact that I wouldn't have the faintest idea what I'm doing, what I'm ordering for food, and where I'm going, and all
which bus to catch. More importantly, which bus to catch.
Yeah,
How would you know the numbers of the buses?
I don't think I would. I think that's the problem. I'm pretty good at finding my way around by public transport in pretty much anywhere that speaks, English, French, sort of German, Spanish, whatever. But Chinese, I would have absolutely no chance. But the players obviously have a very different experience, don't they? For them, it's just the same as any other tournament. They get ferried from A to B. Everything's put on for them. They don't have to get a $1 bus or whatever anywhere. So I don't think they'll have a major problem with it. But some people just don't fancy it because it does come at the end of 7 or 8 months of hard, really hard work in slow conditions with slow balls. We talked about the injuries. A lot of players just don't fancy it. They just see it as a kind of the 4 slams are finished. I'll just sort of go through the motions. That's generally how it's been.
Always the rule of thumb before COVID was whenever the Asian players, whenever the tour travels to Asia, the Asian players always do quite well. That was always sort of the thing that I was always told, to make sure you get them on side, because the motivation for them playing in front of their support, which never really gets the tour across to there. So home advantage here could be quite important as well. So it's a very important factor in terms of your betting. Before we look at the draw, look at the outrights. What about the conditions? I mean, what's the weather forecast? What's the court speed? I know it's been a long time since they played, 2019, but if we were looking at what happened previously and we suspect that to be the same again, what kind of sort of court speed and what kind of weather conditions are the players going to be anticipating this week in Chengdu?
Well, Chengdu was one of the quicker events. Generally, when it was played last time in 2019, I think Carreno Busta described it as very fast. There's 500 meters of altitude here, and that is a big factor in why it does tend to play a bit quicker. It used to be played on a Deco Turf hard court. I'm not sure what it's played on now because the ATP draw sheet doesn't say. The Chengdu website doesn't say. It gives you lots of information about all sorts of things, but it doesn't tell you what hard court it is. It just simply says outdoor hard court, which isn't very helpful. It may still be the same Deco Turf that it was before. It may not. In the old days, when it was played last time, the balls used to kind of skid through a bit. Wasn't a particularly high bouncing court. It was more of a sort of low bounce, skiddy kind of surface. I think they used to use Strixon balls there. The one thing the website does say is that they're using Yonex balls this year. So they're not using the slow Dunlop ATP ones that most of the players have been complaining about all year. They're using Yonex. Not entirely sure whether Yonex are quicker or slower, to be perfectly honest, because they're very rarely used on the tour. But I would hope that they're quicker, should I say, than the Dunlop ones. As far as the weather's concerned, it looks pretty sort of changeable, really kind of cloudy. Certainly not too hot. It's nowhere near as hot as it was in New York, probably about 25 degrees. Showers in the forecast as well in Chengdu this week. So it looks like certainly won't be too hot, quite humid potentially. But I'm hoping and going on the assumption, and I did watch one of the quali matches earlier on today, Gerasimov against Donskoy. It still looked pretty quick. I mean, Gerasimov won 82% of his first serve points in that match. Should have won the match, incidentally, but failed to serve it out. And from what I could tell from the naked eye going on that match, it still looks pretty lively.
Let's have a look at the draw. It's a 32-man draw. It's an ATP Tour 250 event, but the top 4 seeds progress through to the last 16. So already into the last 16, we find number 1 seed Alexander Zverev, Lorenzo Musetti, Grigor Dimitrov and Dan Evans, who are the top 4 seeds this week. With the betting, Zverev is the favourite. He's 2-1. Grigor Dimitrov is 6-1. Dan Evans, who performed heroics in the Davis Cup. I didn't watch any of it because obviously I was away, but I read all about it. I mean, it sounds like an unbelievable performance there. How much is that going to take out of him travelling across to China? He's 8-1. Lorenzo Musetti is 9-1. Safalin is 16. Brandon Nakashima is 16. Alexander Bublik is 16. Emil Rozavora is 16. Vukic 20 and Jordan Thompson 20. And Alexander Zverev obviously was our pick for the US Open at 40-1. What motivation is he going to have to come here and play in this tournament? I know he's through to the last 16. He's a worthy favourite by name, but at 2-1, I certainly wouldn't oppose him. It just look these two tournaments look like if you're going to get someone through or to win it at a big price, these look like the tournaments that can throw up that winner. I don't know where they are. You're the man who's going to tell me where they are. If you look at the draw, Zverev and Dimitrov in the top half, Evans and Musetti in the bottom half. You would probably argue that the bottom half on this service is probably slightly more favourable than the top half. Give us your assumptions of the draw and where you think the value lies.
Yeah, it's interesting that Zverev's playing here this week. He could have played in Laver Cup, which is happening at the end of this weekend coming. But for whatever reason, he's chosen to play here. Now, you could take that one or two ways, couldn't you? You could either see it as a positive, saying that from Zverev's point of view, he wants to get out to Asia early. He's got a good record in Asia, actually, Zverev. He's played pretty well in Shanghai and won the Olympics in Tokyo a couple of years ago as well. Let me have a look. Yeah, but he doesn't do too well in 250s. That would be my concern if I was backing. Well, there's two concerns. One is that he doesn't do fare very well in 250s. As I said, he's not won a 250 since he won Cologne in very, very slow conditions on indoor hard in 2020. That was one of the tournaments that they put on during that sort of COVID year. And he was playing at home and he won one of those. That was the last time he's won one. So almost exactly 3 years since he's won a 250. Quick and low bouncing, I wouldn't say is Zverev's favoured conditions. So unless you're thinking that Zverev is hugely motivated, coming here, deciding not to play Laver Cup, wants to come out, win a tournament, that's a way of thinking. You could look at it like that. I'm not completely convinced, to be honest, about Zverev. I'm just looking at the draw here. The only problem is in that top half of the draw, I'm slightly nonplussed as to who's actually going to beat him. You would probably have Alahi Galan in the first round. Kekmanovic is a possibility, 25-1, but you know, we've backed him a few times, haven't we? And
we're done. I'm done with him.
He's very hit and miss.
He's in room 101 with Sebastian Korda. They're finished. I
think Korda's still got a bit to offer. We'll talk about him again.
Not this year.
Possibly not this year, but we'll talk about him again in a little while. He's playing in Zhuhai, isn't he? I think this week.
Mm-hmm.
Kekmanovic is the only one I feel that could potentially, but he has beaten Zverev before. Could be on a hard court. I think it was in Cincinnati a few years ago. Could possibly be one at 25-1 if you're looking for a big price in the top half of the draw. He is very flaky, though. That's a problem mentally. He's either on it or he's not. And this season, predominantly, it's been not. Has played well in the Asian swing before, so it wouldn't surprise me if Kekmanovic was the one to beat Zverev, but I'm not sure. I'm not convinced. Dimitrov is another possibility. He was playing UTS, the exhibition, the Mouratoglou exhibition event in Frankfurt, I think it was. A few days ago, which is another point to sort of mention, really, in terms of the players that have played this prior week. Most of them would have played in Davis Cup. Dimitrov's the only one in this draw, this Chengdu draw, that played UTS. I'll quickly just go through the players. Just people probably want to know which players did play Davis Cup that are in this Chengdu draw. So we've got Lorenzo Musetti, Dan Evans, Alexander Bublik, Max Purcell, Miomir Kekmanovic, Dusan Lajovic, Emil Ruusuvuori, Daniel Alahi Galan and Nuno Borges. All those guys have just played Davis Cup. So most of them are coming from Europe. So with not that much time to acclimatise, that might be in your thinking when you're talking about betting on this tournament. But as far as the top half is concerned, I mean, Vukic is a possibility as well. Zverev handled him pretty easy at the US Open. So as far as the top half is concerned, I'm not having a bet in the top half at the moment.
The bottom half, as I said, I think the bottom half is probably slightly more easy, especially with the seedy players. I think Zverev and Dimitrov are a much tougher proposition than Evans and Musetti. If there's no value in the top half, there must be some value in the bottom half then.
I think there is, but I'm actually going to wait until after the first round because I think this fourth quarter is really interesting, where you've got Lorenzo Musetti. I'm not totally sold on him if it's as quick as it has been in years gone by in Chengdu. Someone like a Bublik is a big contender here. Rinderknecht, Ruusuvuori, those are all guys that could well make the final at the expense of Zverev. The problem is they're all drawn against each other, which is a slight problem. If I was taking a bet now, I'd probably take 33-1 about Rinderknecht and take a chance on him. You know, he played really well at the US Open. I watched his match against Rublev on grandstand on a very hot day. Rublev really won that on sort of physicality. He was able to keep his best level up for longer than Rinderknecht was, but Rinderknecht's best level was certainly good enough for large periods of that match against Rublev, and it was good enough against Berrettini in the previous round. I know Berrettini fell over, but he was well behind at the time of that accident. So I'm going to wait, but I think there's definitely occasion to take on Evans. As you said, he's probably going to be on a bit of a downer now, not so much mentally, but physically after that Davis Cup match. I certainly looked from Instagram. It looked like Jack Draper was enjoying himself on the way home. I don't know whether you saw that. He was singing the Proclaimers to Andy Murray, who was sort of sat grumpily in the corner, beer can in his hand. Draper, he looked like he had a great time, and I'm going to assume that Evans probably did as well. So there's certainly reasons to take them on, but I'm going to wait until the next show to go with an outright, because that Q4, once the first couple of matches are out of the way, I think we'll have a clearer picture and a better idea.
So we're going to hold our cards closely to our chest here. Not going to play our cards until later in the week. We'll be back on Thursday to look at the next bets on that, and Sean will probably give us an outright pick there as we see who progresses through to that fourth quarter. But the thing here is we think that Zverev obviously at 2-1 is a little bit too short for us in a tournament that historically does throw up some shocks. We have 3 matches that we're going to talk about, though, and we do have plays on some of these matches. The first match we're going to talk about is Tara Daniel. He's up against Alexander Vucic. You mentioned Alexander Vucic. Vucic is -104. Tara Daniel is obviously -120. He's the favourite, and obviously he's going to have the home support here, and that's the reason why he's -120 compared to Vucic being -104. They've never met before. A lot of these players that we're talking about here have got any history on the head-to-head. On the spread, it's -1.5. Tara Daniel giving up 1.5 is +106. Vucic receiving 1.5 is -136. And the total games are 22.5, with over -129, under +102. There's 28 different markets available on the Bet Rivers website. And if you do place a bet on one of those markets, you'll be able to live stream this match, watch it. And I think it's an early, what time is it in the States, this match? I think it's 4:30, 6 a.m. this match. The action starts at 4:30 a.m. So if you are up nice and early, you'll be able to live stream the match on the Bet Rivers website. What do you think about this one, Sean?
I'll talk about this in just 1 second. One thing I just forgot to mention was in terms of the outrights, just very, very briefly going back to that, 7 of the 8 finalists here in Chengdu have all been priced between 16-1 and 66-1. So that's just one thing to bear in mind. This is not a week to be back in favourites, usually anyway, just historically. Just going on to this Daniel Vucic match then. On the summer's hardcourt form that we've seen so far, and this season's main level outdoor hardcourt data, Vucic, for me, is a bit of value here. I think you're right. I think Daniel's just being priced based on the fact that he's an Asian player playing in Asia. I can't think of any other reason why he's favourite. It's certainly not form, because he hasn't won back-to-back completed matches at main level since Indian Wells, Taro Daniel, which was back in March. So he certainly isn't in very good form. Let's just take a look at the stats. This season at main level on this surface, outdoor hard, the service points won and return points won total. Slight edge to Vucic, 99 his total is, and Daniel's on 98. So slight advantage to Vucic there. In terms of the service hold and break combined totals, again, Vucic 99, Daniel 96. So on the stats of this season as a whole, and Vucic has had his best form recently, but I'm taking the whole season, the ups and downs of the whole season. It's certainly Vucic with the advantage. These prices on the face of it, they look the wrong way round. Another reason I like Vucic is that I'm assuming it's going to be reasonably quick here. The bigger game of Vucic should have an advantage. He wins a lot more first serve points and holds serve much more often than Taro Daniel. Has to work a lot harder for his points. Vucic had a really good summer, didn't he? He played really well in Atlanta in very quick conditions, got to the final there, lost in a final set in the final to Taylor Fritz. I just think these prices are the wrong way around. I think you should have it as Vukic slight favourite and Daniel underdog for me.
If you look at the current world rankings, ATP Tour rankings, Vukic is 50, Tara Daniel is 95, 45 places higher. A much better hardcourt record this year in 2023, yet Tara Daniel is the favourite at -120. And that is purely and simply because this match is being played in Asia. And that's why Bet Rivers got the price. But we think value is with Vukic. Let's move on to the next match. Zizou Bergs against Zuzan Lajovic. Now, Lajovic has a pretty awful record in hard courts. He's 6-6 this year, 4-11 in 2022, and 8-10 in 2021. But Bergs showed some quality when he broke through in Gstaad. He got to the quarterfinals, didn't he?
Should have got to the semis,
Yeah, played really, really well. But since then, his form has dropped a little bit. But he's the underdog here. He's +116. Lajovic is -143. Obviously, Lajovic is the much more experienced player. He's the heavy favourite, -143. Bergs is -116. They've never met before. I'm going to get you some props on this market. But Sean, if you just take away your thoughts, and I'll add the props when you finished.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bad price on Dusan Lajovic. You know, this is not his time of year at all. This is a prime example of a player that basically stops once the clay season's finished, and then he sort of struggles through the US Open season, and then he's done. He's lost 5 of his last 6 matches in China, lost 7 of his last 9 in Asia. Now, I took a look at what Dusan Lajovic has done in this specific period of the tour in the last 10 years. So between the end of the US Open and the end of the season, over the last decade, Lajovic's win rate is 33%. So he wins roughly 1 in every 3 matches. And he's lost 15 of his last 18 matches in this particular swing. And you can see why, because you know he's a clay man. He can show up sometimes in quicker conditions, but this stage of the season, for motivation for him, certainly historically has been poor. And you would have thought that in his advanced stage of his career, he's not a young man anymore. I can't imagine he's coming with a spring in his step to this part of the tournament where he's got no clay. It's generally too quick for him. I would assume, given how Chengdu has been in the past, that it should be too quick for him. The problem with Bergs is he is very inconsistent, so you're always taking a chance on him. But I don't mind at this price facing a sort of demotivated Lajovic. Bergs has got a big game, an attacking game, and which should suit the conditions here in Chengdu. He should be highly motivated as well with a wild card. He needs to be making use of these wild cards now. He's not been consistent at all this season, but this is a really big chance. He should be able to rush Lajovic in these Chengdu quick conditions at slight altitude. So I think this is a big chance for Bergs. So I took him earlier on at 2.2. I think he's around about 2.16, I think now at Bet Rivers. But yeah, I'm happy to take that price against Lajovic, who, as I say, wins 1 in every 3 matches this time of the year.
+116 Bergs against the unmotivated Lajovic. We questioned the motivation of some players, and if you look at the trend that Lajovic does in the Asian swing, he's some player that doesn't really fancy it at all. The spread is 2.5. Bergs receives 2.5, -139. Lajovic giving up 2.5 is it's +110, and the total here again is 22.5. The final match we're going to talk about in Chengdu is an interesting one. You spoke about Artur Rindenik as a potential outright winner. He's a big underdog here against Emil Ruusuvuori. Ruusuvuori is -186. Rindenik is +148. The spread is 2.5. Rindenik receiving 2.5, -117. Ruusuvuori giving up the 2.5, -109. The total again, 22.5, -130 for over, +102 for under. These two do have a previous meeting in 2020, though, in Bratislava in his challenger event. So not really relevant at all. Ruusuvuori won that 2 sets to love. But Rindenik has got to overturn some very, very poor hard court form in 2023. Only 3 wins from 10 matches, Sean. Is that a concern for you?
It would be if I was just sort of looking at the bare stats. Yeah, definitely. But I think he's had a lot of injury. Well, he has had a lot of injury problems this season, and they've tended to impact upon his results on hard courts. But the more recent form in New York was really good. I think injuries have been a big problem for Rindenik this season, but the level that he showed against Schwartzman, against Berrettini, and for half the match against Rublev, that would certainly be good enough to beat Ruusuvuori here. It's a definite underdog possibility, because Ruusuvuori's had injury problems as well, but he's come back recently, played pretty well in Davis Cup last week. I think he played in Split in Croatia. Rusevori. He beat Gojo and he beat Tommy Paul on indoor hard there, but lost to Greek Sport. I just feel like this is a chance for Rinderknecht if Rusevori isn't quite at it. I would always be concerned about backing Rusevori at these sort of prices because he is very, very inconsistent. If I was having a bet in this one, I'd certainly feel like there's a good chance for Rinderknecht if he can continue that US Open form. I think the more likely, it's just a lean here, but I think this is quite likely to go over 2.5 sets. That's a 2.3 plus 130 chance with Bet Rivers. And that would probably be the bet that I would take if I was wagering in this match. I think this is going to be very, very close. I would expect it to go either over the games or over the sets.
So just 2 official picks on that tournament?
In Chengdu. Yeah. I don't think we need to go too much, until we've seen the conditions properly, but yeah. I expect it to be quick. So I've taken a chance on the conditions that I think it's going to be.
So small plays on Vukic and small plays on Bergs, both at plus money currently with Bet Rivers. Head to the Bet Rivers website for all the latest odds on that one. There is another tournament this week. It's another ATP Tour 250 event in China as well. It's in Zhuhai. This one here is probably a little bit more quality in the field. If you look at the outright market, there's some very big names. Former Masters champion, major champion Andy Murray. You've got Cam Norrie in there, Sebastian Korda, Karen Khachanov, who's been good hard court form as well. Are we looking at similar conditions to this one as we have in Chengdu, or is it slightly different?
It was much, much slower. It's only been played once before on the tour, Zhuhai. It was really slow. It was almost clay-like, the statistics. It was so slow. It's now listed as a green set hard court, which could be any speed. So we're really guessing a little bit here. If we're going on previous, the one previous edition, it was really, really slow, as I've said. So very difficult with this. This one, I'm really going to wait and see a little bit here. But if there's no altitude involved or very little altitude involved here, so it's never likely to be as quick as Chengdu. It's always going to be a bit slow. It's going to be a bit hotter as well. It's going to be about 30 degrees and humid all week. Thunderstorms are possible. They do have a roof here. If I remember rightly, the roof was used quite a lot on the previous edition that was played here. As I said, was very slow. I think Diminor won the tournament that year. Again, quite a few players playing here that played in Davis Cup or UTS. Cam Norrie, Echeverry, McDonald, Andy Murray, Arnaldi, Christian Garin, and Schwartzman and Struff played UTS. So a lot of guys were in action last week at various parts of the world. But yeah, I would suspect it's going to be quite a bit slower than Chengdu here.
Very similar as well in the draw, but exactly the same in the draw here. A 32-man event. The top 4 seeds are already got to buy through to the last 16, which is the number 1 seed, Karen Khachanov, who's in the top half of the draw, alongside number 4 seed, Sebastian Korda. In the bottom half of the draw, we have number 2 seed, Cam Norrie, and number 3 seed, Jan Lennard Struff. If we look at the draw, Sean, I would probably say that it's slightly easier in the top half if you took away those 2 seeds. I mean, Khachanov and Korda are obviously probably the 2 quality players in the tournament, as far as I'm concerned. But I think of the also rans, it's weaker in the top half. You have Andy Murray in the bottom half. You have Karatsev. You have Garin. You have Lloyd Harris. You have Nishioka is going to have a lot of support as well. So I would argue that it's probably slightly easier in the top half.
Possibly. I mean, you're assuming that Khachanov and Korda are not going to be at it. I actually think the better opportunities in the bottom half, to be honest, in terms of betting value, and that's largely because I've taken Nishioka here at 20-1 each way. As far as the top half is concerned, Khachanov, has barely played, has he, for quite a long time now due to injury. And the match that he played in the US Open, he lost. I think it was to Mo, wasn't it, in the first round of the US Open? So he's seriously rusty. Slightly surprised that he didn't play Chengdu, actually. He's a former, I think he won Chengdu, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I
think he might have won
2016.
Yeah, I think he was 66-1. I think he was the one that won it at 66. That was his kind of breakthrough. You would have thought conditions would favour him there, but for whatever reason, he's chosen here. I'm slightly tempted by Schwartzman here, Slightly tempted on the basis of how well he played in the UTS. I know it's very different conditions and stuff, but you wouldn't have thought the UTS would favour someone like Schwartzman. He had some really good wins there. I think he got to the final or semi-finals. Did really well anyway. If he beats Khachanov, which he's done numerous times, I could certainly see a path through if he keeps that form up. But obviously he's been disappointing and looked kind of faded for most of the year. It's kind of off-putting. But if I was having a wager in the top half, I'd probably go with Schwartzman. But I'm taking Nishioka in the bottom half. I mean, this guy, this is his time of the year, isn't it? Again, he's another one who's had a disappointing season, but he won't be too fatigued. Nishioka comes there with a great record. He always tends to win tournaments or go really well at this stage. China, he's won 5 of the 7 matches he's played here. He won Shenzhen when that was on the tour back in 2019. Yeah, it was quicker conditions than here, but we don't know the speed of this Zhuhai court yet. He won Seoul last year. We had him, didn't we? 25-1 when he won Seoul last year. Beat Dan Evans, Casper Ruud, and Shapovalov to win that tournament. I like his draw here. The first round might be tricky against Altmane. I don't know how you pronounce that, actually. Atmane, sorry.
You're not asking me, surely. You can't be asking me how to pronounce that.
If you, I just
You're my guy.
You might know.
I can pronounce his first name, Terence.
Yeah, Terence. Let's call him Tell for now.
Big Tell.
He's in really good form, actually. At challenger level, he's been in good form for a while. He won the title in Guangzhou on Saturday, so he might be a little bit leggy, which might be good for Nishioka. But if he gets past that, I'm not seeing a great deal. Struff's barely played. He was another one that played at UTS, but he's barely played for months and months and months due to injuries. Norrie's in absolutely desperate form at the minute. Just can't see Norrie doing anything at the moment unless he has a massive upswing in form. Murray, I think, could be tired. If it's slow conditions, he's got to probably go through Norrie on the back of the Davis Cup, several other matches to play as well. I'm not sure his body's really up to it these days. So for me, Nishioka 20-1, he's definitely going to be motivated. We know that's an absolute given. More than happy to take him at 20-1.
I quite like Etcheverry at 10. I thought Etcheverry might have a chance, but I'll probably want a little bit more money than my price at 10. But I think the top half of the draw, if you say it's going to be as slow as it is, there's a lot of players in this draw who won't like the conditions if it is as slow. Khachanov won't like it.
Yeah, it's the if, isn't it?
Yeah. So if it is as slow as we are predicting, then I think that brings in a good chance for Etcheverry as well in the top half. But obviously, he's half the odds of Nishioka. Let's have a look at the betting note. Sebastian Korda is the favourite Bet Rivers at 4-1. Cameron Norrie is 4-1. Couldn't touch either of those. Khachanov is 5-1. Andy Murray 10-1. Etcheverry is 10-1. Lloyd Harris 12. Mackenzie 12. Leonard Struff 12. Arnaldi potential. He's 12.
Yeah.
Karatsev at 12. Probably too slow for him as well if it's slow. And obviously we have Nishioka at 20. So Nishioka is the pick for Sean in Zhuhai. Let's move over to some matches. Again, we have 3 matches that we have. Again, early starts. So head to the Bet Rivers website. Make sure you get on nice and early these because they will be starting very early on Wednesday morning, stateside time. The first match we have is Lloyd Harris against Jiri Vesely. Lloyd Harris is -$2. Vesely is plus 160. Vesely is a player that has already performed some big shot wins this year, none more so than he beat Sebastian Korda at Wimbledon, which we weren't very happy about on that occasion. But Lloyd Harris does lead the head-to-head 2-0, Sean. Is that a concern for you?
Not really. 2-0 is always one that worries me if I'm backing a favourite, which I very rarely do. But if I was backing a favourite, knowing that he's won the 2 previous, I always think that's slightly misleading. If I prefer a head-to-head if they've played like 5 or 6, 7 times, a couple of times, it doesn't always mean that much. Even if it's in slow conditions, which we're not sure it is, but if it is slow, I think that will help Vesely. His movement isn't the greatest. Neither of these two are the best movers. They've both got huge serves when they're firing. They don't move particularly well, particularly Vesely. So anything slower will help Vesely, I feel. I think it's going to be a lot of holds of serve. I'm happy to take a set 1 tiebreak between these two. They've played, as you said, a couple of times before, tiebreak in each of those matches. I feel like this is the first, obviously, the time these guys have seen this court since 2019. I'm happy to take set 1 overs here. That's a plus 230 chance of Bet Rivers. I just feel like this match has got tiebreaks in it, and I feel like the first set is the value play because Harris has played a set 1 tiebreak in 4 of his last 5 main level matches against left-handers. So it's taken him a while to get into the match against lefties, and if Vesely serving well, a tiebreak looks pretty likely between these two.
29 different markets available on the website, including that prop that Sean has mentioned there. If you look at the ones with the most volumes, the spread is 3.5 plus 150 for Harris, giving up 3.5 Vesely minus $2 plus 3.5, and the total here is 23.5. So that's higher than usual, which would make the first set tiebreak a decent play at the nice plus money prices. And the next match is quite an interesting one. I don't really know much about Zhang, so I'm listening to find out what you got to say about him. He's plus 145 against number 6 seed Mackenzie McDonald, who's minus 182. If we look at the markets here, McDonald is a 3.5 game favorite on the spread at plus 115. Zheng is minus 148, easy for me to say. And the total games are pitched at 22.5. What do you think about this one?
I think this is a chance for Shang. He's shown some very decent form this year already, particularly this summer. He's beaten Ben Shelton twice this summer on hard courts. That's looking like decent form now, isn't it? After what happened in New York. So, he's beaten him twice. The guy goes on to make a semi-final of the US Open. He's not doing too much wrong. He did retire last time out, Shang, in the Guangzhou Challenger. It was a heat-related thing. Not that concerned about that. I still feel like he's going to be, like most Chinese players, he's going to be hugely motivated to go well here. McDonald's usually reasonably motivated as well. He's spoken numerous times about how he likes to play this swing of the tour. His mother's of Chinese descent. He likes to come and try his best here. So he's not one that normally goes away easily. He's 9-7 win-loss at main level in Asia, McDonald. So he does generally show up well here, which to be fair, cannot be said of all the American players. A lot of them see this as a bit of a chore. Problem is, for McDonald, he's not usually at his best against left-handers. And if it's slow and bouncy, lefties have caused him all sorts of problems in those sorts of conditions. He's lost 7 of his last 10 main-level matches against left-handers, McDonald. And one of the 3 that he did win was I'm sure lots of people will remember it. It was a virtual walkover from Nadal at the Australian Open, he just didn't want to retire Nadal. So he played the match out, even though he had no chance of winning. That was one of his wins against lefties. But it's been a struggle. I'm always keen, if I possibly can, to kind of oppose McDonald if it's slowish and bouncy and he's playing left-handers. I think he will be motivated, McDonald, but I am tempted here with Shang at plus 170 with Bet Rivers. That would be my play if I was getting involved in that match.
Unfortunately, the plus 170 is gone. It's now plus 145. So the early bird has taken Zhang here, plus 145. That's quite a big move, actually, to go from plus 170 to 145. And I think that is because Bet Rivers are very worried about players from the homeland and the Asian players here. Despite Mackenzie McDonald having his mother obviously being from Chinese descent, I think that's a move that people will have to respect here. I think you'll see money come for the home-based players, and the move will be quite big. The next match, Alexander Muller, the Frenchman, up against Rinky Hichikata. I love the name Rinky Hichikata. I just want to become the president of the Rinky Hichikata fan club, so I can just say that every day to make me feel happy. Rinky Hichikata is minus 121. Alexander Muller is minus 103. They've met once before. Hichikata won at Wimbledon in 2022 in qualifying. Very easy, 6-2, 6-2. And no surprise, he is the favourite here. The money has come for Hichikata. And he's a 1.5 favourite on the spread, and the total is pitched at 22.5. Do you think that's justified, the money to come for the Aussie, or do you think the Frenchman's got a chance here?
What price is he now?
Minus 121.
Which is what, about 1.8?
1.8.
Yeah, he was 1.85 when I looked at this earlier on with Bet Rivers, which did tempt me. I have to say, I am at 1.85. I was kind of hovering over the play button for a good few minutes there. And the reason for that is that he has much, much better stats at main level away from clay, does Hijikata. 2023 at main level, service points won, return points won totals, not including clay, which is where Muller tends to play his best stuff. Muller 94, Hijikata 99. So a pretty big advantage to Hijikata there. An even bigger advantage if you look at the service hold and break totals. Muller's only on 90, Hijikata on 100. The head-to-head, as you say, was a pretty comfortable win for Hijikata on grass. I think it was 6-2, 6-2 or something like that. Wimbledon qualies last year. Both played well at challenger level the last time they played. Muller was 1 point away from the final in Cassis, and Hijikata lost in a final that was moved indoors, actually, because of the weather in the Carey Challenger in North Carolina. So both played well in challenges last time out. Hijikata obviously played great at the US Open, got to the fourth round. The word was that he had a bit of an injury when he took on TFO, had a bit of a side strain or something like that. But on the stats, I mean, the 1.85 was certainly something that I seriously considered, given that he's far better stats. The worry is that he only played that Carey Challenger final a couple of days ago. It's a long way from North Carolina to Zhuhai. So it was what kind of put me off, because he has played a lot of tennis lately in Jakarta, but I wouldn't put anybody off backing him as a slight favourite, because he is considerably ahead on the stats and in very good form at the minute as well.
Yeah, I quite like the Rinky Carter here, -121. I think he's a decent bet against Alexandra Muller, who's been playing at a lot less level than what the Aussie has been playing. So there it is. There are round one matches. And remember, it's very important for you to head to the Bet Rivers website. These are early starts. So they're probably starting around about 4 a.m. Your time, and then some of them I think go on through to the evening as well. So they're different time zones. So make sure you check out the Bet Rivers website for those times. We don't know the order of play yet, but it is over in China. One thing we do know, in the next month, the Asian Swing comes on and Game Bet Match, and this show will be broadcast now every Tuesday, every Thursday and Friday, rather than your traditional Sunday, Tuesday and Wednesday. The only way you can follow across everything is by downloading the Betting Weekly Game Bet Match podcast on your preferred podcast provider. That will give you an alert every time we go live, and also subscribe, hit the bell on our YouTube channel, which is Betting Weekly Studios. That will alert you every time there is a show come down and there's a show gone live, and you won't miss a thing. You can also follow us on our socials on Twitter and Instagram. We share the same handle @BecauseWeWin. Sean, just give a little recap of your best bets, please, for the first round here over in China as the tour returns since the COVID. Seems like 2019. I mean, it's just mad, isn't it? When I was looking at when was someone's asked me now, when was COVID? I can't remember. 2019, 4 years ago. It's insane.
Well, the COVID was the year after, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, the 3.5 years since it sort of emerged, it's gone so quickly. What are your picks?
Yeah, so just the one in Zhuhai, as far as the match bets are concerned, that's set one tiebreak at +230 with Bet Rivers in the match between Harris and Vesely. The outright there, Nishioka each way, 20 to 1. Now I'm gonna have to bring up Chengdu again here. Let's just quickly recap that. No outright yet. I'm just waiting a little bit on that just to see what happens in the fourth quarter. But as far as the match bets are concerned, Vukic as underdog, I think he's about 1.97 with Bet Rivers to beat Taro Daniel. And the other underdog I like is Zizou Bergs. He's a 2.16 +116 chance of Bet Rivers to beat Dusan Lajovic.
Yeah, it's the tournament of underdogs. This is the time you want to get with the dogs, as the stats show. Let's hope that trend can continue and we can end the year on a high. There's only 2 more months left of the 2023 ATP Tour. Any more trips planned, Sean?
Yeah, next one's Antwerp. That's a new city for me. Never been there, so looking forward to that. And then, as we did last year, the last one for me will be Paris, Bercy in Paris Masters there. So those are the 2 that wrap up the season for me.
I have one more trip. I'm going to Vienna. Same time as Antwerp, I think. I think it's the same time.
I think it's the week after, isn't it, Vienna? Where is it? Yeah, Vienna's the week after.
Oh, okay. That's right. So there we go. So we will have you covered. Make sure you follow the Instagram account. You'll see all our travels on there. So just 3 trips for us. And please subscribe to that YouTube channel as well. So the tour is back. We've got 2 months. And we're going to be absolutely determined to end on a high with some big winners here on Game Bet Match. Take care, everyone, and we'll speak to you again on Thursday. Make sure you put that in the notebook, Thursday and Friday this week and for the next month while the tour is over in Asia. Take care.